Here he is, the biggest douche of the universe. In all the galaxies, there's no bigger douche than you.
British TV personality and disgraced former journalist Piers Morgan, seen here spitting a sausage roll out on live TV because it isn't made of pig anuses.
That's a good look, Piers.
Oh my God.
Has been taking a particular interest in vegans over the last couple of months, even more so than usual, and so I fancied making a video of debunking and ripping on every single thing I could find Piers Morgan saying about veganism. Enjoy.
Now, how many of you eat bread? A serious question. You all eat bread. So you're aware that how bread gets made, right?
Yeah.
Wheat crops and all that kind of thing. Ladybirds, bugs, things. Mice, rats, all these other little creatures that are in the crop, they get destroyed in the production of wheat crops, right? So that you guys can munch your bread. Tell me the difference, ideologically, between me wanting a Christmas turkey, right, and you guys eating bread, which you know involves the slaughter of millions of young critters.
Crop deaths though, how original. Let's address it though. Off the bat, it's a broken argument, as crops are also fed to farmed animals, meaning the average animal-based diet results in far more crop deaths than the average vegan one. Some of the lowest figures suggest that over 70 billion land animals are killed by animal agriculture industries each year, whereas the literal highest annual crop death estimate I was able to find for animals like mice, birds and amphibians came in at around 7 billion. So not only are 10 times more land animals killed purposely for non-vegans than those killed both purposefully and accidentally in the farming of crops, not to mention the literal trillions of marine animals non-vegans also kill, but the crop deaths that are occurring could be drastically reduced if we weren't growing far more crops than we actually require in order to sustain animal farming. That isn't Piers' only major oversight though, as he's conveniently ignoring the commodification and literal torture we subject farmed animals to that we spare wild animals. Around 85% of farmed animals raised in the UK currently are living in factory farms. If you could ask a factory-farmed pig or chicken or turkey if they'd want to swap places with a wild animal, what do you think they might say? No thanks, I can't see the ideological difference between my life now, living in my own feces and urine, being subjected to painful mutilations, forced to grow unnaturally large, unable to turn around, having never seen the sun, unable to bond with my children, destined to be hung upside down and stabbed to death while still young, or to die struggling to breathe in a gas chamber, and the life of an animal who actually has their freedom, like a wild bee or a wild field mouse. And before you write your comment, assassin, I'm looking at you, yes, of course nature is cruel and disgusting too. Wild animals suffer immensely, and we shouldn't overlook that, but that doesn't justify breeding other animals into existence that we then treat even worse. It also doesn't justify breeding them into existence to treat them better, but ultimately to still exploit and murder them for that matter. Where is the logic here? I'm not seeing any. I only see greed and a lack of empathy. Also, I'm kind of skeptical of just how many animals like field mice and birds are killed during crop harvesting. I imagine most can escape. Of course, that's just speculation, but it seems intuitive. So, case closed you might say on crop death though, but I like to be thorough. Because some Piers Morgan fans might say, well, I hunt all my meat, and I eat a 100% carnivore diet, so I only kill the animals I eat and no others. That's surely less than the animals you are responsible for killing in crop farming. Well, firstly,
cool motive, still murder.
That lifestyle is obviously unhealthy, but it's also completely unsustainable. Imagine if every single person who currently buys meat goes and gets a gun and goes out hunting. How long do you think we'll even have wild animals for? Not long before you're farming them again, is it? And on top of that, there is a clear moral distinction between crop-related deaths and just randomly going out and putting a bullet in someone. If I was threatening your only food source, your crops, and you genuinely had no other way to stop me than to kill me, then you might be able to argue that was justified. But if I was just walking about minding my own business, not threatening you in any way, and you came along and killed me, well, I'd like to hear your legal defense for that one. Now, before moving on to whatever it is Piers says next, sorry, I know we spent a while on this one, I just want to touch on how it's certainly not impossible, just improbable, to imagine a world where humans produce nearly all of their food without harming any other animal in the process. And we can and should strive for that. But how do we convince farmers, and everyone else for that matter, that it's wrong to kill a field mouse by accident, or shoot a rabbit to defend crops, when we still as a society collectively agree that it's not wrong to breed animals into factory farms to be violently killed for our taste buds? Once we agree that animals have the right to be spared unnecessary suffering, essentially when most people are vegan, most people will also agree that crop deaths ought to be minimised as far as possible, or outright eliminated if we can practically manage that. Oh, one more thing. Animal agriculture is the leading cause of habitat loss and species extinction, so if you care about wild animals, Piers, you should go vegan. Alright then, is that enough? Should I have just stopped at more crops needed to feed a meat eater than a vegan and moved on with the video? Alright, let's get back to some Piers Morgan.
Hang on. Now, when I eat a steak, I know that the preparation of that steak involved the killing of an animal.
Sure.
When they eat their bread...
Me too.
Wait a sec. It's come to Ashley. When you eat your bread, right, you know, because you've all just admitted this, that when you eat your bread, you know it involves the slaughter of animals. To me, there's absolutely no ideological difference between my decision-making when I eat my steak and yours when you eat your bread. Are you wearing leather shoes?
No, I'm not wearing leather shoes.
Any leather at all?
No, I deliberately do buy.
You never wear any leather.
Very
Okay, let's bring in Dominica. Here's my issue about the vegan thing, right? I've got no problem with anyone being vegan whatsoever, right? I believe absolutely in a right to choice when it comes to food, smoking, drinking, whatever you are. I don't believe in nanny state, right?
Well, we all need to seriously hope that Piers isn't actually as liberal about who and what people are choosing to eat as he's making out he is, because surely he would object to someone farming humans for food. So then what, Piers, is the morally relevant trait difference between humans and non-human animals that means you would definitely advocate for a nanny state that stops someone hanging you upside down so they can kill you and eat you, but in the same breath you'd argue that you should have the right to do it to others that look different to you, without question? The thing is, Piers, you are allowed to eat animals. No one has taken that away from you. But why shouldn't they be allowed to question whether or not you or someone else ought to be doing it? You'd be the first to judge someone for doing something you deem immoral, as we'll see in just a moment, yet you don't think vegans should have the same freedom. That's hypocrisy.
What I have a real problem with is radical vegans storming into supermarkets like these three did with their mates, right? Terrorising old people doing their shopping for Christmas, right? Young kids trying to go around with their mums and dads in supermarkets.
Well, I don't need to say much here, do I? If learning where your food comes from is terrorising, then that says it all, doesn't it? But what vegan activists are doing isn't terrorising, at all, and he knows it, he's just being ridiculous. Compare having to hear some vegans in the supermarket talking about what happens to turkeys, to literally being the turkey. One of these things is completely mundane compared to the other, wouldn't you say, Piers? Someone is being terrorised, but it's not the people doing their Christmas shopping, that's for sure.
It annoys everyone and wants me to want to eat more meat as a protest against them.
The entire point of many protests is to cause disruption, which by its nature can be described as annoying. So you're just complimenting their activism, really. Thanks, Piers. And by all means, kill and eat innocent animals in a protest against protesters. It might be the one thing you could do that would actually make you look even more daft than you already are. For this next Piers hot take, I'm not going to react because honestly the vegans he was interviewing did a good enough job of making him look like an idiot already. Because believe it or not, Piers Morgan is about to compare himself to a wild animal living in the jungle. Oh yes. And huge props to the one activist at the end of this next clip, who does a great job of getting her words out simply by speaking and almost shouting over Piers, doing exactly what he normally does back to him.
Every single day, vegans are talking about what's happening to these animals because what they're facing is a total injustice. And the protests that we're doing, these are non-violent protests.
But they're annoying protests. I don't want to go to the supermarket and you lot howling at me about veganism.
They might be annoying, but what they're doing is exposing the truth. And this is because
what happens in the jungle? In the jungle, animals eat other animals to stay alive, right? Well, actually, we're doing the same thing as animals do in a jungle. We are eating to survive, right?
If you're comparing people to animals, that means you can almost compare everything.
We are animals.
No. Okay, so what? Ducks rape other ducks. So are you suggesting that's what we should do as well? Not at all. So you can't compare animal behaviour, every single aspect of animal behaviour.
In the jungle, animals eat other animals to survive, right? Human beings eat other animals to survive.
This is not about our survival because we can survive on a vegan diet, which is evidenced by all of us. This is these animals are facing on all levels is an injustice. They're being oppressed. They're being slaughtered. They're having their bodies abused and cut up, and that is an unnecessary thing. And we have a moral responsibility.
I get it, but your morality doesn't
think about these animals and do what we can to reduce suffering.
I get it, and I admire the passion, but my point to you is your fury about all this does not extend morally to the little animals that get killed in the production of the bread you love to eat.
Was you not arguing against trophy hunting?
Trophy hunting is disgusting, right?
Okay, so that is very much similar.
Posing with the head of a lion on your wall is making it into an ugly, horrible thing.
I agree with you.
But actually eating food for survival is not a horrible thing.
It's not for survival though, is it? No one ever died from not eating a Big Mac or a KFC bucket. And honestly, Piers, to say trophy hunting is more ugly and disgusting than what you partake in shows an incredible amount of ignorance about meat production. The animals you eat are murdered just like the animals murdered by trophy hunters. However, they are also raised on disgusting farms living in misery before that. Trophy hunters also do the killing themselves. You pay some other poor soul to do the dirty work for you. How is that not a more disgusting thing to do? To make someone else murder an innocent being because of your taste preference. And if killing an animal to have their corpse mutilated and sliced into pieces so you can put those pieces of flesh on your tongue, swallow them and digest them, isn't at least as disgusting as killing them to turn them into a rug or mount their head on a wall or pose with them for a photo, then what on earth is? Maybe it's just the act of taking a photo of the dead animal that Piers takes issue with, in which case he had better never go on any social media platform as people post pictures of dead animals on their plates all the time.
What do you eat?
I eat...
Do you eat almonds? Do you drink almond milk? Eat almonds? Do you eat almonds? Do you eat almonds or drink almond milk? Do you drink almond milk? Do you drink almond milk? Do you drink almond milk? And do you eat avocados? 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 Would you eat? Do you drink almond milk? Do you drink almond milk? Do you eat almonds? Do you eat avocados? When you eat your almonds and almond milk, vegans can eat almonds and eat avocados. Do you eat almonds? Do you drink almonds? Do you eat avocados? Eat almonds?
Yes.
Yes, you do. Great. Do you know how avocados and almonds get made?
Absolutely.
You do.
Yes.
So you realise that in California, every year, for 6 weeks, they fly in billions of bees to create your almonds and avocados. And in that process, several billion bees get murdered.
Do you believe in the climate crisis?
Yes.
Well, the animal agriculture, farming and fishing is a leading cause of the climate crisis.
You know what's also a leading cause of climate crisis? Planes which carry vast amounts of your avocados and your almonds from California and fly them thousands of miles to your table here in your vegan cafes. And then they also go in trucks. And that is an environmental hazard too. So you're not only are you killing billions of bees, you're destroying the planet. And yet you have the brass neck to sit here in between munching your almonds and your avocados and start preaching to me about how virtuous you are about not killing animals.
Alright, so Piers' next two arguments are that both almonds and avocados, being plant foods, are suitable for vegans, and their production results in the exploitation and mass killing of bees, and that the transport involved in getting these foods to consumers is destroying the planet. I'm going to let animal rights activist Ed Winters respond to the bee killing claim, before I come back to touch on the transport issue.
This one about almond production and bees is just another sensationalist media talking point, which Piers knows will create some form of outrage around what he's saying. Firstly, those bees are honeybees, which means they're bred by beekeepers who are actually using them for honey, but then rent them out to almond farmers so they can also make some extra money on the side. So if you're complaining about what happens to bees in almond farming, well then of course I'm sure you're against the honey industry in the US as well, and of course don't buy honey produced by US farmers, because the reason those honeybees exist in the first place and are rented to almond farmers is because of the honey industry. The main cause of death for bees is due to the chemicals and pesticides that are used in the agricultural system in the US, not because of some deliberate cull. And importantly, if you don't like how almonds are produced in California, then simply don't buy almonds that are produced in California. It's not a requirement of veganism to buy Californian almonds. It's very easy to avoid doing so. So if you don't like it, just don't pay for it. And instead, you can consume something like oat milk, because oats self-pollinate and they don't require any bees in that process. So I guess that means that Piers Morgan can now be vegan, considering he doesn't have to buy Californian almonds after all.
Right, now onto the transport destroying the planet claims. I'll be quick with this one. Firstly, unlike what Piers is suggesting, most food is transported not by air but by sea and then by land. Secondly, not only plant foods, but also animal products also require transportation. Thirdly, crops are being imported not just to feed vegans and non-vegans, but also to feed the animals non-vegans are eating. Fourthly, When looking at the environmental impact of food products, only a tiny fraction of the impact is down to transport, with most of the damage being caused by deforestation, pollution from farming machinery, methane from farmed animals, overfishing and water usage. Finally, not only vegans eat crops, including Piers' favourite, like avocados, but everyone does. Basically, Piers' claim about avocados destroying the planet is just super, super wrong, and trying to blame it all on vegans is also just as ridiculous. Nothing more to say, really.
Within years, technology like precision fermentation, alt protein, is going to produce the exact same products that you love right now, using a fraction of the land, producing a fraction of the carbon
footprint. But I like
footprint.
eating meat. No, but I like eating meat. Honestly, it's true. The more stuff you do like this...
Sorry, I didn't catch that. It's true, is it? You've said that about 3 times. I didn't quite catch it. That you like eating meat?
Yes.
Oh, thanks. I didn't get it the first 3 times.
Yeah, he likes eating meat. But sensory pleasure is not a justification for violence. Let's say we swap taste for another sense, like hearing, and my argument for the abuse and exploitation of animals, or any other group for that matter, was that I liked the sound of them suffering. Would that sound like a good reason to do it? Saying you like eating meat doesn't justify doing it, and honestly, it's an even weaker excuse than ever these days, as there's delicious vegan alternatives for any meat product you can think of. I'm dead serious when I say this is really it. I watched a lot of other Piers Morgan on veganism videos that didn't make it into this one, because honestly, I couldn't find him making any other real arguments than crop deaths though, vegans are annoying, almonds kill bees, avocado aeroplanes, and I like meat.
Marks and Spencer's have a very popular sweet. One of the most popular sweets they do, right? Called Percy Pig. Percy, in case you don't realise, Percy is a pig. Pigs are made of meat, right? But oh no, the vegans have come. The vegans have come for Percy. It's the fact that they had tiny little bits of gelatine in, right?
Not tiny little bits, I think they're made out of gelatin.
Right, and what's gelatine made of?
Pigs.
So guess what? Something that's got a pig face on it actually has a bit of pig in it. Wow.
Makes no sense.
Oh, no, we can't have that.
We
can't have that. So now M&S have got rid of all the gelatine.
Snakes that you buy at the sweet shop, made of snakes.
M&S have got...
Now I know there's no hope at all of Piers ever hearing this, but if a miracle occurred and you do hear me, Piers, please invite me on to talk with you on any show about veganism. There is one condition, of course, and that is that you don't bring up the arguments covered and debunked here in this video, because why waste our time? That's fair, right? I'd love to hear you answer the question I asked at the beginning of the video about the morally relevant trait difference between humans and non-human animals that means it's alright to exploit and kill one for pleasure or preference, but not the other. Anyway, if you've watched all of this video, thank you. I hope you found parts of it enjoyable, and maybe even learned one new response to any of these absurd arguments in case you ever come across them. If you're a Piers fan and you've always thought these were good arguments, I hope I've changed your mind. Anyway, like, subscribe, comment, all the YouTube things, I really appreciate it. See you again soon, peace.
He fed me, actually, directly fed me the meat into my mouth. It was delicious, loved it.
He fed me the meat into my mouth, and then he caressed my neck, and then he unbuttoned his trousers, and I sucked his dick.